You know, if I explained in other videos that I've done here, that God gave me a revelation. In the revelation, He told me that the scriptures contained in the Bible can be interpreted from the viewpoint of science. And He said that in order for us to have the type of relationship with Him that we need to have, we have got to learn to interpret the scripture from the viewpoint of science. In all areas of our lives, we know that we don't use the superstition and the supernatural to try to bring forth ideals to interact with anyone. The only time we use superstition and the supernatural is when we are dealing with God. We have a tendency to think that God can work, we'll work in miraculous ways, like sending human-like people from the sky that serve as angels and things like that. You see, God said this is unrealistic. We've got to learn to understand Him from a scientific perspective so we can have an applicable relationship with Him, one that we can apply. We can't apply superstition. We can't deal with the world concretely in any fashion, dealing with superstition and supernatural. So He sent me to tell you that. And he said that the scriptures are spiritually ordained, to be interpreted from the viewpoint of science. That is, the scriptures are divinely ordained. He ordained them to be interpreted from the viewpoint of science, but we've got to apply ourselves. Today I want to talk a little bit about Revelation. The same thing, about the 7 seals. The Lamb is going to open the 7 seals. Now, in my book, The Blossom of Christianity, I explain how those 7 spirits that is described in the 4th chapter of Revelation, the 7 lamps that stood before God, they also represented the 7 spirits. But these are the same 7 spirits. In the 5th chapter of Revelation, it explains how there was a lamb that appeared around the throne that appeared to be dead. And the lamb had 7 eyes and 7 horns. These 7 eyes and 7 horns, the Bible explained, represented also the 7 spirits, you see. So we see here the situation where these things are allegorical. The 7 spirits of God can appear in different fashion depending on what the circumstance is. In my book I also explained that the 7 churches, they also constituted the 7 spirits. You see, the spirit of the Son of God abided amidst those 7 spirits. John saw one like unto the Son of Man standing amidst the 7 candlesticks. You see, and the 7 that had the 7 stars in his hand. You see, here we have the 7 spirits represented as the 7 candlesticks. And also, you see, in the 5th chapter of Revelation, and talking about the Lamb around the throne, the 7 eyes and the 7 horns, they represented the 7 spirits. The Bible just went ahead and said that these are the 7 spirits. So the 7 churches and the 7 angels that the Son of God had in his hand represented the same thing. The 7 churches could be identified as the 7 horns, and the 7 stars can be identified as the 7 eyes. You see, so we have to understand these things allegorical. You see. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about and explain the scripture from the viewpoint of science, the seal. Okay, so the Lamb is anybody that carry the idea all things made are good and made by God. That's a lamb. Can you imagine? Let's think about it. Now, if you accept the idea that God is making all things and all things God has made are good, that place you're in a position of being an innocent wee lamb, because you can't be harmful to anything. You can't hate anything because you know all things are of God. Of course, you have to learn how to live in the world. Of course, for instance, I always give the example about a beehive. If you get the idea all things made by God and all things God made are good, and you put your head in a beehive, you're going to get stung. You can't say, wow, this beehive, these bees are terrible. God didn't make it to hurt me like this. You have got to learn to get out of the situation and help the situation. See, God placed us here to do a job. He wants us to be joined in union with Him, but we have got to understand Him from a scientific perspective in order to have an applicable relationship, one that we can apply, and do things. He placed us here as a service. God was so good to human beings He allowed them to join union with him. No other animals on the earth that he gave that opportunity, but human being, we won't even use it. Still depending on magic. We can connect to God scientifically, just like we do with all the rest of the world. But we've got to learn to understand them from a scientific perspective, you see. Now, so people are always talking about, well, God is the maker of all things. Say, for instance, if an airplane crash and children get killed, why did he let that happen? I always say this, more than likely something was going wrong with the aircraft. And more than likely, the reason something was going wrong with that aircraft is because it didn't have the proper maintenance that it needed. And the reason it didn't get the proper maintenance that it needed, because someone somewhere was probably trying to stretch on the money, under the idea of something made or evil or not made by God, you've got to have the most money. So they'll stretch on that just to and give themselves more money, to get more and more money. And this is what caused the problem. So you see, the idea that something made evil or not made by God, which is the spirit of the dragon, it is what caused the problem. Then it's turn around and tell you, well, you can't believe in God because he made this happen. But God didn't do it. If you accept the idea that God is the maker of all things, then there would be no stretching on the maintenance, And then the airplane or aircraft would have been in good shape and it wouldn't have crashed. The idea that some things made of evil not made by God, causing people to try to get the most money, and therefore, it's not, they have to do it. They spend the least amount they can on the product and try to get the greatest reward. That's just the way it is. And that is what caused the problem. So you see, Satan has a way of making us turn against God, and he's the one doing the problem all the time. If people accept the idea that God, you can accept either one of those ideas. You can accept the idea that God is making all things, or you can accept the idea that some things are not made by God, and some things God made are evil, You can't prove neither one to be the absolute truth. Either one you have to accept by faith. We've been operating on the idea some things made are evil and not made by God by faith. We can also accept the Lamb. That's what the Revelation is all about. See, people need sometimes think of this coming affair, with the changing that is explained in Revelation as the earth, physical earth. All these problems happen on the physical earth. But really, for the Revelation, this is allegorical. It's talking about the ending of this materialistic system. And this involves ideals, not the physical plane, but a spiritual plane, you see. It's allegorical of the physical plane, though, you see. This ideal is a lamb. It is appearing. It's appearing, you see. John saw that. God showed it to him. And it is going to be riding on that white horse. The first, the lamb opened the first seal, and he saw a rider of white horse. The ideal, all things are made by God, and all things God are made are good, are riding. He's on that white horse. He's a conqueror, you see. He can conquer. There's no other idea that can conquer it. Only the idea of some things made of evil and are not made by God can serve equal with it. It's up to us to choose the one by faith, you see. So it's a conqueror. It's going out into the system to conquer the system. That's what the white horse is all about. And then the red, it calls the red horse to ride. The red horse is not riding until the white horse ride out. It's riding out. The idea all things made are good and are made by God. And then the red horse has to ride, because see, there are people who are still in the system and support the system of materialism, that under the materialistic paradigm and under the spirit of the dragon. Some things made evil are not made by God. So there's going to be war. The red horse is symbolizing war that's going to be going on between people, not physically, but spiritually. Not so much physically, but spiritually. Ideas, People challenge each other. Well, this is good. This is good. I gotta have this. I want this. It's the war that's going on. That's the war that's be going on between people. As soon as people will help me get this idea lifted up, as Jesus said, it must be lifted up, so it can draw men unto it. Right now, only the dragon is lifted up. People supporting it 100%. And then the church people thinking they're supporting God, and they support it also. Because the beast that came about the earth, it represents the religious establishment. And the Bible said the religious establishment also is operating with the dragon. You see. And of course the beast that came about the sea, that symbolized the earth emerging about a sea of positive and negative charge, and I was explaining how that represent, the woman, beast that carried the woman on his back did the same thing, and it represents the planetary social development with materialism riding on his back, which is symbolized as the great city of Babylon. And we know that the Bible tells us that it gets its power directly from the dragon, because the scriptures there, and the beast gets its power from the dragon, from the idea something made or evil not made by God, you see. But I don't think the church even know that they had it, that they have it. But they have that dragon also, you see. So you see, and now, so that red horse is causing war between people. That's what it's going to be. That's what it's all about. It's a spiritual thing. And then, of course, when they have that war between people, between those two ideals, because, you can't prove either one to be the truth, so, people can war about it. There's going to be a dividing off here. You see what I'm trying to say? The ones who want to accept God will go to the right. The ones who want to accept the old system that we're operating on, they go to the left. The Bible explained it. The lamb was standing in the middle of the road. And so one goes to the left and one goes to the right. It has to be that way. You can't intermix no more, because the lamb got to be precise. He got to have his side. You can't have the church people saying that they love God and believe that God made all things and everything. Then their behavior, reflect that they are still serving the dragon. That can't be going on anymore. You got to be precise. You got to go one side or the other. So now that's why the third horse, the black horse, gonna ride. It has the scale. That symbolizes measuring things. The fairness of things. You see, and that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna measure this situation between people, this war between people that's been caused by the red horse. You see. That's what it's all about. That's Revelation all about. Now, then, the opening of the seal. Then, of course, you have the last horse, which is the pale horse. It's going to close out the system. It's death. It's bringing death to this old order and life to the new order. Either way, if you still want to remain in Babylon and serve under the idea of something made of evil or not made by God, it's closing that off. If you want to go and start working on the new system, which is under the idea all things made are good and made by God, which is the foundation, the lamb to serve as the foundation for a brand new paradigm. Then that pale horse going to close that off. There's going to be an ending of this, once it all to go through. And then, see, once that has happened, then you can start looking around and see what's going on. And you'll see what you have to do. You see that the fifth seal is open, then you got the souls on the altar. And I explained, these are the ones that go to take the lamb to Mount Zion, which is the highest level of religious and development, planetary development by the social development, planetary social development, the highest level in the UN. That's why you have your highest level of religious activity and activity by nation, the planetary social development, the highest level. That's Mount Zion. That idea got to be there, and that 12,000 from each tribe. You've heard the 12 tribes. They've been reserved to do this. These are the souls on the altar. You see that. You see, you can begin to understand that. And then I'm just kind of heavy going through this. I just want to get people looking at the opening of the seventh seal from a scientific perspective. That's the way we get an applicable understanding of God and what we have to do. Not depending on thinking that Earth's going to be rocking in clouds and the natural sun being darkened. No, this has to do with ideals. This is a changing of a system. And system of government are based on ideals. Okay, so then you see souls on the altar, and then the sixth seal, it has to do with they talk about the sun. Well, see, the materialism is a paradigm. It's a good one. It's been carrying the world on good. It brought about all the material products and services that we have, but it's coming to an end, you see. And the idea, the very main idea that is supporting materialism, you see, that would represent a sun. That's something to give light about how the system's supposed to work and everything. But with all this happening, then that sun becomes darkened. It's within your mind, not the sun you have out here, you see. The earthquake that would be occurring would be the overturning of ideals that you have in your head, not the physical earth being overturned, you see. You see, it's a spiritual thing. It's going to be taking place in people's mind. And so, of course, it's going to be appearing out here on the social level, but not on the physical level. You see, and then you see that the men, the kings of the earth, and the Bible says all people, the kings of the earth, the great captains, and even free men, and all your bondsmen, and all your freemen, and all people are going to run to the mountains. These mountains are not physical mountains. They're allegorical. They say, for instance, like a field in physics or chemistry. That would be a mountain, you see. And the little different ideals that are associated would be rock, you know, little jobs that you have in there. That would be something like a rock. When Jesus is kind of explaining, and people look at scripture from the superstition and the supernatural, that's why we haven't been getting a good idea of how God operates, because we can't see it scientifically, so we just call it in superstition. You know, I don't know how people get that. I just can't deal with superstition in my life, because I can't do anything concretely with it out there. But when the Bible explained about Jesus would go up into the mountain, and only his disciples were able to follow him. Why were the other people able to follow him? They had legs. Why they couldn't walk on behind him, you know? The Bible explained that only his disciples was able to go up with him. This is talking about Jesus was taking them up a spiritual mountain. You know, what they saw Moses and Elijah and all of them. He showed them, this is Moses. See, he's taking them up on a spiritual plane, understanding. And only the disciples who had been following them could follow up that ladder, you know? Like, I can never follow someone who's at the top mountain of a mountain in physics, but someone with that has a doctor's degree and at the top of the mountain in physics, but someone with a master's degree could follow them and understand the thing they're doing. That's the same situation with Jesus and his disciples. See, he had been teaching them. You know, they knew basically what the system was all about. So when he go up in the mountain of understanding, they could follow him. And then he could show them, see, this is Moses' position. This is Elijah's position. You know, this, oh, I see, you know. No one else could do that because they had their understanding. We have got to look at it from that perspective. Because we know that other people had legs. If it was physical, they could walk up the mountain. It wasn't that kind of mountain. This is the same thing about the mountain here. People be going to the materialistic idea and say, hey, follow us, you know, in the rock. I got a job. We've been working, you know. We can't turn away from this and serve the lamb or whatever we're going to have to do. You know, hide us from the face of the lamb. This is what's going to be happening, you see. So I just kind of, I don't have enough time. My book, explain a little bit more about this, you know, and I explained what those are all about, what that John saw when he had an opportunity to see all the characters in heaven. But I'll try to get some more in on this, you know. I haven't been getting feedback back. I don't know exactly what's going on with people. I'm more and more convinced now that people have been taken under the sorcery of something, and they just would not let kind, intelligent, Christian people of faith accept the truth. You know, the Bible says in 2 Thessalonians, I think in 2nd chapter, you know, around about the 3rd verse, all the way down to around the 12th, 14th verse, how someone will be coming in the world, and people, because they didn't love the truth, that God was going to send a strong delusion on them. And I think that's what's happening. So, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm just wasting time. But I tell God I'm going to go ahead and put it out there as much as I can anyway. So I just give y'all this little bit now about Revelation. It's much, much more. It can be explained much, much better. You know, but sometimes I feel like it's just, you know, useless, you know. So, you know, I'm trying to get that lamb established. It's riding out, you know, on top of Mount Zion, because I'm part of the 144,000. God saved me out. I revealed that when I went through circumcision, you see, God instilled in me in my heart that all things were made by God. And he told me that this is the idea that Jesus taught. And that I had to bring it back. And this would be the first resurrection of Jesus, the spiritual resurrection. Now, if people believe me, I thank God. I know sooner or later they got to do it, because I believe in God. He never failed, you know. I don't know. So I just gave that little part about this opening of the seventh seal. I hope it's been able to be beneficial to